So welcome to the next. As we're going to be looking at sorting, filtering, grouping, and ranking. All right, so again, we are going to start with inserting a pivot table. We go to insert pivot table right here, and we are placing it on a new worksheet. Again, here we are. And let's take approach. Okay, so there are 3 different approaches in this campaign. If you remember our story, let's go back to the story to refresh our mind. This is a campaign funded by Havron, and in which different countries embarked upon a project to recruit participants. Okay, so these are the countries, and all the countries have been grouped, group A, B, C to F. These are the respective countries, and this happened for 24 months, from January 2012 to December 2013, okay? And these were the numbers of the enrollees recruited. They were recruited out of this population, okay? And this was the expenditure for each campaign. And then at the end of the campaign, this was the retention out of what we had. All right, so this is just a background to this data set. And now we have inserted the pivot table. So we are going to look at how to rank, how to sort, how to filter. All right, so here, this is a small number. So let's just take a group rather than approach. So let's remove this so that we have these 6 groups, and then we are going to rank them in a particular order. So if we are going to rank these groups, what field are we going to use to rank them? Are we going to rank them in terms of the number of enrollees that they were able to recruit? Or we are going to rank them according to the expenditure that is made? Are we going to rank them in terms of the population that they worked with? All right, so there are different things we can do here. So all that we have mentioned, we can decide to put them over here and see how they look across here, right? So let's get the population first. Let's get the population. Here I have the population, you see? So we are going to look at the population. Out of the population, what was the enrollment? They enrolled this. And during the enrollment, what did they expend? So I put this under expenditure, under the value. And after then, let's see the retention. So we are going to put our retention here again, right under this. Okay, so I have used this now to also explain that we are pivoting our data set to make it look differently. We want to see different things. So if we look at the data set, this is a whole lot of data records. But right here, we have it simplified for us. So we are now looking at the groups. How did the groups perform in terms of the population? So I'm going to copy this out. I'm going to make a duplicate. Let's drop this one here. Again, I'm going to hold down my control button, do the selection, pick and drop, and then I have 3. So we can do this one by population, ranking by population, ranking by enrollees, ranking by expenditure, ranking by retention. All right, so assuming that we have the task of showing the groups, how did they rank in terms of population? How did they rank in terms of enrollees that they recruited? How did they rank in terms of number of, the expenditure, the total sum of expenditure that they made? All right, so let's again rename our pivot tables. So we are going to, let's say we want to sort. Okay, so here we are looking at sorting. And by the way, I think we can look at different perspective of sorting. So let me also create another one over here. And for this, I'm going to drop it over here. Right, so, and I'm also going to drop another one here so that we can have different perspective of the same thing. All right, anyone we didn't use, we leave it there. All right, so for this one now, we are going to look at sorting. So I'm going to rename this pivot table to reflect the operation that we are looking at. So we are looking at sorting. So this pivot table is what we are using for sorting. When we go to another pivot table, whatever we do there, we use, we rename it. So let's say we want to sort by population in a particular order, right? So if I right click here, I see sorting. How do you want to sort it? You want to sort it by smallest to largest. Smallest to largest is ascending, or largest to smallest descending. Let's choose this first one, and it's going to rearrange it for us. Now you see A, B, then we have F instead of C. And then we now have C, D, and E. So what this is telling us is that this is the smallest. Again, for my visual cue, I'm going to get this so that my number, I can have my 8,000 separator. It gives me a quick assessment of the number. So we are looking at 63 million. And then down, we have 67. So this is another way you want to look at your data. It can give you a different insight. So, so it is actually group D that made the highest population. Now, the way this is now, let's see if we can sort by here. So let me also get this number format to get our 1,000 separator. I like it so that at a glance, I will know what is happening. So you see that this is not taken on any particular order. The number of enrollees, the total enrollees recruited is not taking any particular order. Because here you see 11 million. Here you see 12 million. It looks as if it is increasing. But when it comes here, okay, yeah, it's still increasing. But when it comes here, it reduces. And then here it further reduces. And then here it increases between here and here. So it is not, the sorting is not based on this column. Neither is it on this column again. So let's look at our number formatting here. I like to use the 1,000 separator, and there we go. The same thing over here. I want to not this one, but when we get to formatting, we hope to explain more why we're not using the other type of formatting. Okay, there are these two types here, this one and this one. You can achieve the same thing, but there is a reason why I'm using this now. And there are reasons why we use this at a particular point in time. So again, I don't want this, I just want 0. And it applies to every one of them. All right, so this, we may decide now to come over here. This is the same data that we worked on here. It's the same data. So We are now going to do our sorting from another field. Let's say we do our sorting from expenditure. So how did they perform in terms of expenditure? Again, so let's just right click here and get a number formatting, remove the decimal point, and then apply of course, we know that this one is there. So now let's arrange them. Again, I'm going to right click. Remember that we are sorting on the column that is active where our cursor is. So I'm going to sort. I'm going to, let's say, from largest to smallest. And then we see here that is coming the highest. 12 million, then 122,000, 119,000, and so on and so forth. So this is how we can aggregate our, customize our field to have a particular view. This is a form of analysis. We've now looked at, okay, so if I was to pick out the group that spent more, this is the culprit, group F. So we might decide to find out why did they perform so much, why did they spend so much money? And then we can now look at, is it possible for us to find out the effectiveness of each group? If this group spent 12 million to get this, now let's see how many people, what is that? Okay, population. No, let's not look at the population. Let's just look at the number of enrollees that they brought in. So this is the total sum of enrollees. Let's see, like we described in our first video, we talked about the different skills. One of the skills there is curiosity. So we want to find out somebody that is spending $12 million to recruit 12.7 million people. Was that very, very effective compared to someone who recruited 11.9 million and spent only $122,931? You want to look at this. This person looks better. But when you look at this point again, you see another person here spending 117,000 to recruit a whopping 12 million participants. You want to give kudos to this person and investigate what did they do to spend less and get more. All right, so when you become curious like this, it helps you to bring out insights. And so by further looking at it, you can also say, let's look at their retention. What is the retention rate for each of them? Again, for our for our visual cue, I'm going to put this, and then let's see, this one had 1 million retained, 1.9 million, all of them almost the same thing, 1.9, 1.9, 1.9. So one may be interested in finding out what this person did, because this seems better than the rest. Sorry. This seems better. Okay. What did this person do? Group C. The countries in Group C, there is something unique about them. And so this can give us the impetus to dive in, to look more critically on this. All right, so let's quickly look at another type of customizing our fields. We have looked at sorting, and let's look at filtering. Okay, what kind of filtering can we apply here? We might not really have much to filter here, except we change. Okay, what can we change? We can look at what do we need to filter out? Maybe the simplest thing that comes to mind is we want to filter out the top top three. So let's see the top three. So I'm going to right click right here, and I'm going to filter out top 10. So these are the different things you can apply, different types of filters you can apply. So let's see top 10. And because I have 3 dots following it, that means I can still modify what I am choosing. So I'm going to look at top here or bottom. So let's look at top. And top what? Because there are only 5, I may limit my number to 3. And then what am I looking at? Top 3 in what? Top 3 items. All right. Not just percentage, not just some, but items. And then where are we applying that? What are we going to use the values that we are going to be using at? Is it the sum of population, which is here? Are we going to look at the top 3 population or top 3 number of enrollees recruited, or the top 3 expenditure or the retention? Okay. Again, anyone we apply here, we can make more distinct. So there's something we need to do right now. So let's say we apply expenditure. So this is the expenditure here. Now it's going to give us the first 3. So this is the first 3. This is the smallest, followed by, is it the smallest? Let's see. Let's get our numbers by this, and it gives us 1, 2, 2, and so on and so forth. Remember that what this has done, it has just filtered out the first 3. It is not presenting it in any particular order. Apart from here, this is where it's applying its order the way it was from the beginning. So we may be the one now to say, okay, we want to present this in a particular order. But what we have commanded it to do is to filter out our first 3. Then the next thing we want to look at is we have this 1, 2, 3, and then do we need to change it or what? Now, but first of all, I want to bring in 2 concepts that we have always been using. We are going to tamper with the data set and then refresh, and then let's see what happens. So here, I'm going to, what did we apply? We applied expenditure. So on our expenditure, let's make some changes, okay? Let's make some changes on group. So let's apply filter, and then let's bring out a group that we are interested in. Let's say we're interested in group D. So group D is this. So let's select the entire group D and then change the figures. Okay, no. Let's increase. Let's also have more than one group. Let's say we are looking at group B and D, B and D. And so we are going to apply the changes that we are going to make to these 2 groups. All right, so from the beginning here, we're looking at the population. I'm selecting everything down, and I'm going to make this 1,000 up to 100,000 and apply everything across. All right, so I remove the filter. Now let's go back to our filter table, and I'm going to refresh our pivot table. So refreshing this pivot table, what's going to happen is the pivot table will go to the original data and then pull the current data and present here. Again, so we're clicking the pivot table, analyze, come to refresh, and then here we have. So it has updated this. And then let's see when we clear this filter and apply it again. So I want us to look at these 3 that were the first 3. Let's see what happens if we clear this filter. clear the filter. And then let's apply the filter again. Where these new ones came on board. All right, that's if they are now included in the first three. So let's go ahead and still look for our filter. Sorry, I need to filter from here. Filter top 10. Again, we are looking at first three by sum of population. No, we looked at expenditure. Great, so let's go ahead. It's still the three of them. Okay, so I just wanted to find out, assuming that A was involved. So now let's go to that data again. Sorry, our data set here, and then let's apply filter, and then I'm bringing out group A. I want to see if we bring group A, and then group A happens to be among the highest, what will happen? So let's say we have 10,000 and 100. This is 100,000. Let's give it 1 million. And then let's see this. So we have updated this. I take away my filter, and then I come to here and I want to refresh. You see what has happened? Automatically, group A appears. So that filter that we applied is automatic and dynamic. So the moment we refreshed our data, it has knocked off the one that was there, and the new one has come on board. All right, so this is another way that we can manipulate our data. All right, so we have talked about sorting, we have talked about filtering. Now let's look at grouping, okay? So did we rename this table? Yes, we renamed this sorting, and here we rename it filtering, okay? So note also that you can apply a number of filtering here. They are very, very easy, okay? You can come over here to filter based on the figures, that, I mean, numbers or values that are equal to or does not equal to, or begins with this. We're talking about text, or does not begin with or ends with. So there is a whole lot of options that you can apply in your filter label. Then you can also look at, this filter label talks about the text. And then for here, you can talk about the numbers. So filtering numbers, if it is equal to this and so on and so forth, you can actually look at them all. All right, so at your time, as you practice, please take time to explore what those items will give to you. Now here, let's look at grouping. Again, so I'm going to click here, and I am writing it, I'm renaming the table as grouping. Now, what do we want to group? And for this grouping, I'm going to delete this because I want to use country. And if I go ahead to use country here, I will get an error. And that error is to tell me that the pivot table is going to go down. And as it goes down, it has seen that there is data here or a table here, and it's going to override it. And so it's going to alert you that this is the issue there. Okay, I know that's what's going to happen, so I will avoid that. But let's also go ahead to showcase peradventure one runs into that kind of error. So I'm not going to delete this. I'm going to go ahead to change this to country. So I'm taking away my group and I'm bringing in my country here. And then I'm going to have this. We couldn't complete the action for the pivot table grouping in the sheet 2, because there's already a pivot table there. Make space and try again. All right, so I'm going to click OK, and I'm simply going to delete all this. So when you are deleting a pivot table, make sure you select everything about that pivot table. Note that if you apply filter on your pivot table, for instance, this here, I decide to bring country over here, there's going to be another rule up here. And when you are trying to delete this, don't only select it, select the entire thing so that it goes off. If you select this and try to hit, it's telling you it cannot make changes until you select the entire pivot table. So I'm going to select this entire pivot table and I'm going to hit the delete and it goes off. So let's go ahead and demonstrate the grouping. And we are going to look at, we're looking at the country, but let's just first of all set up where we want to look at grouping. Can we look at the retention? Now, let's see the retention. If we look at this retention now, the margin between the groups is not very, very distinct. So we want to apply something that will make it distinct. Let's come to our pivot table. And I have done some, let's see if this applied. I tried to make this to be distinct so that we can see how that is. Let me refresh. And let's see what we got. In the retention for the groups, we have, okay, again, let's get our 1000 separator. I come over here, number, I don't want decimal point, but I want my separator. So it's not really, there is no much difference, right? So we need to go to our data set and make sure that there are distinct difference between them. So just intermittently, I'm just going to use different figures to assign to them. So I want my figures to be very, very distinct between them. So I have between $100, sorry, 100 enrollees that are retained to 10,000. Or rather, let's say 100 to 1,000, I select that. And then going down below, again, wherever this selection stopped, I'm going again to change this. The last one was 100 to, so now let's see if we can get 500 to 10,000. Again, I do for everything. And then the next one, let's see if we can get another one that speaks to, let's say 700. Okay, let's say 1,700 to 8,000. Okay, I have 180,000. Let's say 18,000. Again, let's see how this works. And can we say, let's just leave the remaining one. At least I know we should be able to get distinct differences between them. So let's go ahead and refresh. And let's see how this play out here. Analyze, refresh. Okay, so I have 5,000 for all the groups. And okay, so now let's just go ahead and do the regrouping. If we don't get what we want and if we don't get the distinct differences between each number, we can go back to the original data set and reassign different values for them. So what we need to do is, this is the table we are going to use for the grouping. So let's disarm some of these things. We don't need this. We don't need this. We don't need this. We need our retention. Remember, this is where we want to do our grouping. What is it that we really want to establish here? We want to see the distribution of the groups into bins or groups or clusters. We can say, okay, for the first minimum to about 5,000 or 10,000, how many are there? Let's just go ahead and describe. Maybe it will be clearer as we demonstrate. So my grouping, let me remove my grouping. I have my retention here, but let me bring the retention right under the rows. Now, Some people, some countries retain 103, some retain 112, and then it goes on like that. If you were to plot this on a chart, it will give you a very long, clusters or bars that you may not really make much meaning out of it. So that's why we just want to put them in bands. Okay, so now that I have brought this row under here, remember that this is our retention. Let me be sure that it's retention. So come over here. I want to use a tabular, and it shows me this is retention. Good. So this is the retention. Now, but some countries have this. Now, let's see how we can group this. So I'm going to right click right here. Okay, come onto my analyze. I'm going to right click and come to group field here. I click this. Now let's look at this wizard. It's telling us, it's just showing us that the minimum retention in this selected column is 103. And the ending is about 99989. So I want to group all these entries by 10,000. What it means is that one group will differ from the other group by 10,000. Now let's see how this happens. I click OK. See what happens. The difference between 103 and 10,102 is 10,000. The difference between these two, the upper and the lower margin, is 10,000. So this is the grouping that we're looking at. Now, if we now look at the different groups, we wanted to use country, but I discovered that the country will be very, very large. See what I mean? If I'm picking my country here and dropping it here, it's going to, again, there are some items here. This is the error we got. So it can't happen because it will be very, very long here. So let's also go ahead and delete this one and delete this one too. All right, so, and then we can try that again. We have cleared space there. If we bring country there, it has taken that, but the country is long for us. Let's just pick something that is very, very small. So rather than grouping by country, let's use that group and put it here. So we have group A, B, C up to group F. So how does each group perform? I'm talking about this group A now, perform in terms of these bins. We can call this as bins, B-I-N-S, in bins or clusters or buckets. How do they perform? How many of these values falling will A have? So now let's bring our where is our retention? Our retention onto the value field, and then it distributes that. So what this is telling us now is that Group A has 216 different units that fall into this. It could be some countries for different dates, the values that they have in terms of retention. If you add all the different countries for different dates, the values that they recorded in our data set that falls between this group 103 to 10,102 are 216. This is a large number, but we are going to use smaller ones to demonstrate if this is true or not. So let's look at these ones here, group C, group D, group E, and maybe F. But by the time we look at C and D, we'll be able to prove that this is it's a true reflection of what happened. Now let's go back to our main data set. Remember that this is where we applied our retention. In order to avoid this thing changing, we need to fix these values. Remember that as we keep performing operations on here, the numbers will keep changing. And then the number here will also change. Like right now, because of those numbers that just changed a while ago, when I refresh, these values are going to change. See, they have changed. Now, I want to further illustrate something. So if I am going to select this right now, sorry, let me reduce this. If I'm going to select this right now, and just want to be sure, good. If I'm going to select all this right now, I'm going to give a picture of this selection now. I'm going to paste it as a picture. Good. So look at this now. By the time I go to change the figures there, it's going to change. All right. So I just want to let us know the reason why we need to fix this. So if I do this, any operation you do here is going to change. So let's go back to this point and then refresh. You see that the figures will change. So they have changed, okay? Let's bring them together and see. So you see that these ones didn't change much, but you can see that for group C here, which is here, we have 15. Therefore, over here, we have 21. The same thing for group D, we have 23. And then for group D here, we have 15. So it's necessary for us to fix these figures here so that they do not change. So how do I do this? I'm going to select the entire column where I want to fix it. Remember that as I selected this, over here on my formula bar, it's the function that is operational. Now, I'm going to, as I've selected this column, I'm going to either copy and paste as values, or I'm just simply going to click the frame of this selection, drag it away and bring it back again. And then I now release my right mouse. It is right click. So I'm going to release it and I'm going to have these options and I'm choosing copy here as values only. Note that once I choose copy here as values only, this function disappears, which means the values are now fixed. You can see it has turned. And so nothing will change here again. So now let's just go simply back here and then make sure that this contains the current data by refreshing. And then this is what we have. So now we want to prove that this is true. Okay, we want to prove that this is true. These figures are true from our main data set. How do we do that? Let's look for group C. We want to go to our main data set and filter. We want to filter on retention. Come over here. This is my retention, right? So let me apply filter and then let me go right there and filter numbers. What we have is between that 50 something and let's get the number again. I copied it. So it's between 108 and 10.7. So that is what we want to filter now. I copied that. Okay, so I'm going to open this, go to my number filter. So it's a between argument. So it is between. So I'm going to paste what I copied there. That is 108. Then I'm copying the other one. I'm pasting it here. So 108 and 10,107. What is the argument? This value, we want all the values that are greater or equal to 106 between this figure and the number, the upper limit should be less or equal to this. So let's apply this. And then it filters out all the data that fall in within this our argument. So this is it. Scroll down, you see it. They're all less than that figure. Now, we want to prove that for group C, there are 22 entries that make this criterion. Let's go back and come to group column, deselect all, select group C. And then how many do we have? let's count how many that appear here. When we look at our number, we see 22. Is that what we see? We see 22 for group C. Now let's go to C here. We see C over here. This is 22. Now, for this same figure, what do we have for D? Let's go back to this point and come to our group column. We want to see D. So we select D and we deselect C. We OK it. What's the number here? How many? We're talking about count. It's counting 19 for us. We go back to pivot table and we see we have 19 here, 19 for D. Okay, so it's the same thing that we will have if we check all the groups one after the other. So you see that this is easier to plot and view. You can now say, okay, for group B, there are 87. So you will see 87 as the bar, the value being plotted here. All right, so this is how you do your grouping to view them in groups. You can do other things, especially dates. You want to group your date in quarters, you want to group them in a semester, and so on and so forth. All right, so this is the end of this module 3, where we have looked at the different types of customizing. Well, we still have other topics under this filter group 3. We just finished customizing our fields to look at it at different ways, on different, from different perspectives. As we were describing, we talked a little bit of filtering data to display the data that we are interested in seeing. We looked at that. We also looked at refreshing our data to go and pick a fresh update of our original one. So in the next video, we will talk more on the other aspect of filter, because there are different ways you can filter your data. So in the next video, we'll be talking about filtering your data, the different levels that you can filter your data and look at them from different perspectives. Then we'll continue to be looking at refreshing your data to get that. And then we will then look at drilling down when you arrange your data in a hierarchical order, see how you drill down. So thank you for watching. Let's watch out for the next video that will take us through to the filter and the rest of the processes of data manipulation. Thank you.